Welcome to my channel. Dandy Leone is the name that I created for this channel, and I like to talk about astrology and woo-woo stuff. So somebody was recently asking me about numerology and what books I would recommend for beginners, and I'm just gonna say, like, numerology I really picked up by listening to a lot of people. I would listen to subjects on I'm an auditory learner, so I listen to subjects on numerology and astrology for about an hour a day for about 6 years. And then I studied some things on my own throughout the years, but I don't have any beginner books for numerology, but I do have books on tarot. So I'm excited to share what I love about the books that I have on tarot. Now, when I teach, I don't take cash for my teachings of workshops and people on the tarot, but I teach the tarot from a self-empowering perspective, and I teach what I learned when I was getting my bachelor's and my master's in psychology, and a little bit of when I was going for my doctorate. I teach things that I learned in those programs. And some people, like, when they have a dream, they want to pick up a dream book and find the answer there. Some people know that there's other ways to find the answers to dreams. And I went to a dream festival recently, and there's a whole dream company, organization where people get together to analyze dreams. And they have the method of, if this was my dream, this is what it would mean. Well, what I do when I analyze dreams, and teach people how to do the tarot, or even just sit with a person and do a general reading based on whatever they're seeing around them. What I do is called phenomenology, and it's a it's always hard for me to say this word. Phenomenological approach is what it is. And the first person who taught it to me was named Trisha Nichols. And then I had various other teachers in these accredited programs for psychology. And the psychology that I was learning was holistic. So it was a combination of psychoanalysis. It was a combination of solution-oriented, transcendental psychology, basically felt sense, mindfulness, you name it. I was trained on all the stuff that's the more modern psychologies, and then a little bit of the other stuff leading up to it, like behavioral. The school that I went to taught that behavioral was really outdated and not useful and limited. But sadly, county systems, that's all they can afford, or that's all they have the money for. So there's newer forms. But we had a combination of, the cognitive and the other type of psychologies as well. So when I teach tarot, I do not teach it as this means that necessarily. I'm very much into empowering the client or the person that I'm sitting with, and helping their unconscious become more conscious. But that said, it's still nice to have books on tarot, because there's so much history there. There's so much to be learned from tarot. And tarot is about our collective experience as human beings. So the first one that I'm going to recommend, and they'll give you the general gist of what these cards mean, and that can be great. There's many paths to get to where we're going, but this is not, just looking it up in a book is not the pathway that I would teach people one-on-one. But if you're on your own, these are great books. So I'm just going to start off in the deep end here. The first one I'm going to recommend is Red Tarot. So this is Christopher Marmolejo, and this is designed to be used with any deck. Red Tarot is a radical praxis, decolonized oracle that moves beyond simple self-help to reclaim tarot for liberation, self-determination, and collective healing. So this is a great book for people who liked post-colonial astrology and tarot for change, which are also books that I'm going to be recommending. This book is great because it includes marginalized folks. It includes, it's not just geared towards the fraternity of white men, okay? And it's made to question the original interpretations, and to say, like, what if this was inclusive, more inclusive of this situation or that situation or this type of person or that type of person, or folks that have been through these things or folks that have been through those things. So it's designed to kind of decolonize, in a sense. So yeah. Moving on. Those who, if you know, you know. So yeah. I love this. Oh, and another thing about this that I enjoyed when I was going through, you know, like, some of us like to look at what's the card for the year. Well, in this book, it's like, why look at one card? Like, you've got this card, this card, this card, that card that you can look at. Look at all the twos and what they mean. Look at all of the, you know, for 2026, look at all the twos and what they mean. Look at all the zeros and what they mean. Look at all the sixes and what they mean. Look at what, you know, it just is it's the deep end. Okay. And it's good. I love it. It was really good stuff. The next book I'd highly recommend for people that are getting into tarot is The Queen of Wands. I love this book. Now, this is easy reading. And this book is about the person who designed the most popular images that we see in tarot today. She designed the original deck, but she doesn't get a lot of credit. Her name was Pamela, and she had a lovely nickname, which you will learn when you read the book. But I highly recommend this book. And it's, if you're into like being like, what would the card of the year be? It's really interesting when you find out that one of the original designers of tarot, the tarot that is so commonly used, which has a lot to do with creating our mythos, our myths, and our master narratives, and the unconscious and subconscious narratives that we all like kind of have and act out without even realizing it. Well, when you realize that she had actually put them in a different order than what this group of frat guys ended up like putting it in, it's pretty interesting stuff. And the group of frat guys, they were like, I call them the group of frat guys, but really, like, I mean, they were like just a lot of white guys that, like, you know, had more pull in society because of patriarchy. So like they had to go their way. And if you believe in things like multiple timelines, and you can theorize and hypothesize, like, well, what would it be like if the unconscious narrative was this versus that? You know, if the card for that year had been 12 instead of 8, that was like 2024. I think it was 2024. There were 2 cards, and it's almost like there was 2 directions that things could have gone. And it was really interesting because, yeah, anyway, if you know, you know. If you understand what I'm saying, you understand what I'm saying. And either way, you're going to like this book. It's really easy reading. Okay, so moving on. Oh, and yeah, so you're not just reading this for the sake of, like, you know, the fact that a lot of times things don't get attributed to like Black people when they're like the original discoverers of these things, or women when they were the actual painters or creator of the artistic things. A lot of times things don't get attributed to anybody other than like the whitest man that was like willing to like run with it and put his face on it. So this is like, you're reading this for more than that like reason. You're reading this because there's information in here. This is like, this would be the High Priestess and the tarot card, and the tarot deck. Like, this is like, there's hidden information in this it's cool to know. Okay. So, post-colonial astrology, I had mentioned that before. So this isn't a tarot book, but it's kind of along the same vein as the other book that I was mentioning. This book doesn't go over tarot so much, but it's sort of the same. If you enjoy like the idea of, you know, pre-colonial knowing, that this book can be a lot of fun. And it's kind of along the same vein as this book. So if you want more of that kind of stuff. So speaking of pre-colonial, well, that brings me to Jung, Carl Jung. So Jung is also a deep dive on the archetypical. Archetype means the stories. There's myths and stories that are part of our unconscious. And these end up through programming, like through idioms and the idea like money doesn't grow on trees. And that's like a scarcity idea, right? But like money literally did like come from trees at one point, because money was made from paper and the paper came from the trees. So like it gets you to, these get you to like question like the narrative and look at where did it actually come from and what was it in response to. This is this guy, Jung, and it's written by a woman who's using his framework, but he liked to travel and spend time with indigenous tribes. And he was one of the fathers of psychology, like Freud. He's considered one of the psychology fathers, but dissimilar to Freud, Jung had more white privilege. So he was, whereas Freud, because he was German, and because he was Jewish, during a time when like Jewish people were being like massacred, it wasn't as safe for Freud to be as open-minded as it was for Jung to be more open-minded at the time because of privilege. So Jung would spend some time with these tribes, and he had a little more respect for them in the way that he described them. He didn't describe them as much as savages the way that Freud would. But on the same token, like how much respect can a white man who's not invited have, who's just showing up and then taking the information and regurgitating it and then having a lot of that information attributed it all as his own, right? So we have that aspect too. So I don't want to ignore that part, but when it does come to, not everybody has the access, and some of us want information that's a little closer to, so you're going to get a little mix of imperialism and post-colonialism with your openness to indigenous ideas, and honoring, and there's a lot of honoring of exchange that happens in here, as more so than usual for the white world. Okay, so boy, it was hard to say that out loud. And if it makes people angry, I'm sorry, but that's just how it goes. So this book, I would say, it's just basically like goes through all of the cards, and it's telling you about these master narratives that a lot of us have. And by us, it would be those of us who are white passing and white. And they're just these stories that are, they end up in our subconscious and our unconscious. And when we understand and we take time to recognize that those stories are there and that they are fueling the unconscious actions that we take and make, and even some of our belief systems that we didn't even realize came from way before we were even born, when we take the time to look at it deeply, it can be very interesting, and it can help give us direction. Because one of the best ways to know where you might want to go is to really know where you've been. And part of where you've been is in your coding. So once you look at that, you can be like, okay, I've already seen that. Now I want to see this. So that's kind of cool. Okay, so another book that I really, really like is, we got a lot of female authors here. Jessica Dore, Tarot for Change. I love this book so much. This is a great book for This is endorsed by Chani Nicholas too. Before I even knew who Chani Nicholas was, for those of you who don't know, Chani Nicholas does astrology, and she talks about archetype stuff, and she has her own business. She makes sure that everybody who works for her gets paid like over 100,000 a year or something like that, and that like women get unlimited number of days off for their menses, and she's just very like modern, and like she has taken everything that like humanity has learned and evolved from, and like she's integrating it into her business in a very Aquarian type of a way, that is like including humans and equity and yada yada. But anyway, this book is a lot about self-care. Tarot for self-care is what I would call this. But it's not just about self-care for the purpose of like, okay, I took care of myself, now I'm done. It's self-care for the purpose of the better I take care of myself, the better I can take care of other people, or the better I can let more accurately, the better I can allow other people to take care of themselves. The better I take care of myself is what this is saying. The better example I give to other people of how to take care of themselves, and the better I will be able to allow them to take care of themselves. So like simple things like, you know, looking inward, like, oh, you're so annoyed by that because there's something like you that's like that. That's like one of the most common things. Like that's that kind of flavor. Like some of us are deeply reflective, and that's like something like, are we judging that person for having a fancy teacup because what? We would feel like we're ridiculous if we had a fancy teacup. You know, where's the fear in us, and dismantling the fear, and then being like, do I care enough about that person to know what their story is behind that? Like, what does it mean to them? Because there's meaning in things. And then like, do I care enough about myself to allow myself to have meaning too? So it's basically like, it helps us accept ourselves and like grow. And it's so good. It's just so good. It's so good. And the cool thing about these books, even though this isn't the way I teach people how to read, I teach people how to read for empowerment and look inward out. But if you're a beginner and you just want, like, you can just open it up to the page that is the card, and then just read that part. And it's great. It's just fun. Okay, so another book that I love is Tarot at the Crossroads. I don't know why I love this book so much. This book is about how it's about bridging the worlds between like people who sit and counsel with people by, you know, using tarot cards or art, and people who sit and counsel with people by using what they've learned through, like, you know, psychoanalysis or dream analysis or what have you. So this is about like bridging those two things, because, you know, there was a time at the beginning of all this, and maybe there still are like tribes that get together that are indigenous, that, you know, they get together and they reflect on things and they talk about things. But this is like, it's kind of more like, it's about like the importance of getting together to like have discussions about these inner reflections, and it gives like ideas on how to integrate like what it is that is being experienced and learned, and how to reflect it. And it integrates tarot through that. And it's just really fun when you start looking into the psychology in tarot. I mean, psychology, the word comes from psyche. And the idea of psyche is like, in some ways, considered to be like the soul. And there was a time where people sat around in circle just sharing soul, like sharing dreams, sharing what they saw and what they find meaning. You know, I saw two crows kissing, and then two doves landed next to them and started kissing. You know, what what it means to me, and when it happened to me it was like this and that, and then somebody else will be like, yeah, you know, it could be like this and that. And so those kinds of, like, you know, the way that when people get together at the big dream conventions, they kind of talk in that kind of manner too. It's not the phenomenological approach that I use, but it's certainly useful, and it's good for relating. So that's a great book. And then another book that I really love, also Pamela Coe. So another Pamela created this book, and this was from a startup. And I think you could get the cards with it if you wanted. The cards were, you know, cute. You know, like all cards are cute. But, you know, they're definitely like a cute style. But I just really liked the book personally. This one, I love because, like, sometimes you just want to do like a yes or no reading, and like a card will be like yes or no. And you can decide before you're going to do that reading, you know, does this yes or no mean like what this card means? Is that why? Or you can just decide it's either yes or it's a no. So I like that. Like, so Knight of Swords and could be yes. See, I would have thought, like, if I were like doing it, I would be like, Knight of Swords might be a no. Like, but it depends on, in the way that I would teach like the client or the person I'm sitting with to determine for themselves, like what's a yes and what's a no. But it's great. It's great. You're going to get to like the answers and the path, and whatever way you go is how you go. But I just love like the format of this. One of the things that I love about the format of this is they go over like there's symbols in there. So there's symbols for the planet, symbols for the zodiac, symbols for the elements, the numerology, and the count. And it's just kind of cool to become familiar with the symbols, because like having the symbols, especially if you have like a photogenic memory, this is like such a good book for you, because here you have the photo. You have a photo of something happening, and they make it really clear, like the general gist of like what this card is and what it means. And then you have like, so you're going to remember that, right? But then having the symbols like right here to like the left and the right, the different parts of your brain, it's just like the right is, when we look to the right, we tend to be processing emotions in a feeling way, but you've already gotten your feeling on the left side. So it's really interesting because it's going to help you. Just the symbols, having access to the symbols is really helpful if you really get into this stuff, because when you want to like, you know, like look at an ephemeris, it's all symbols. An ephemeris is a thing where like, it's like a calendar, but it's done in all symbols, and it gives you a general idea of like when so-and-so is born on some day in the future, or when such and such happened someday in the past. You can look at it and read it. It's another language, basically, but it's a language of symbols, which all of this is. But this is like, it actually gives you like what it looks like when it's written in a symbol, as opposed to what it feels like, what the experience is like of the symbol. This is like, it just gives you like the flat out, like the symbol. So you're getting it all with this. And I just love the way that this is laid out. Yeah, so I highly recommend this book. It's just the way it's done, like it's just so useful to see, like, oh, and it's got like the Hebrew symbols too. It's got like the tree of life in here. It doesn't have like the butterfly, there's like the butterfly, which is indigenous. I'm pretty sure it's just Cherokee, but it's the butterfly and the tree of life are really similar in how they're designed, but like it goes over like the different colors, and it's got like Hermetic Kabbalah, the Tree of Life pathway. This book is just so good. So it's called Territorial, the expanded guidebook. And it's a comprehensive guide to learning the book that the type of deck that another Pamela created. So way back when. And this was kind of like the mother of like tarot. So yeah, those are my recommendations. Enjoy.